Hello there, you're watching All 24 News live from Algiers. I'm your host, Karim Zachary. Let's have a look at the headlines. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune affirms the new Algeria is aware that the African dimension remains an important strategic option, noting the identity and religious ties that link Algeria to its continental depth. Also coming up, delegations from African countries landed at Joint Base Andrews, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., to take part in the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, where President Joe Biden is expected to declare U.S. support for the African Union's admittance to the G20 as a permanent member. Plus, recent inquiries in the scandal of suspected corruption in European Parliament reveal suspicions over involvement of Moroccan ambassador in Poland. Also in our news, Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs handed the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict a detailed report on the Zionist occupiers' crime against Palestinian children. And finally, according to the International Energy Agency, Europe has enough gas for the winter, but it's likely to face a shortage next year if Russia cuts supplies further. Hello again and welcome to the program. First in our news, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune affirmed that the new Algeria is aware that the African dimension remains an important and strategic option, noting the identity and religious ties that link Algeria to its continental depth. President Tebboune addressed a message to the participants of the Algiers International Forum about Imam Mohammed bin Abdel Karim al-Maghili, praising the efforts of Sheikh al-Maghili in spreading tolerant teachings of Islam in the African continent. The message was read on the President's behalf by Minister of Religious Affairs and Waqf, Youssef Belmehdi.
تمكن الإمام المغيلي من الاستثمار في البعد الإفريقي.
Imam al-Mughili was able to invest in the African dimension and was able to be a ground for reconciliation and constructive cooperation. The new Algeria realizes that the African dimension is an important strategic option. President Tebboune says that the African dimension remains an important strategic choice that enables our peoples to complete our desired aspirations, to enhance diplomatic work, revitalize religious tourism, and benefit from the depth of Sufi orders and their extensions in Africa, which leads to achieve harmony in political positions, activate economic cooperation, promote scientific and cultural exchange, and establish stability, security, and peace in the whole world.
The Algerian Minister for Public Works, Lakhtar Rakhrouch, affirmed Algeria's readiness to expand the partnership with Mauritania through vital projects such as the road linking Tindouf and Zouirat. It should be also noted that the Mauritanian Minister of Equipment and Transport, Naniwal Charouka, is on a 3-day visit to Algeria as part of the first meeting of the Algerian-Mauritanian Joint Committee for the completion of the road linking Tindouf and Zouirat. To other news now, ahead of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, where President Joe Biden is expected to declare U.S. support for the African Union's admittance to the G20 as a permanent member, delegations from African countries landed at Joint Base Andrews, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. According to the White House advisor Jude Davenport, President Biden is anticipated to make the announcement during the conference when he meets with presidents of African nations.
Working closely with Congress, the U.S. will commit $55 billion to Africa over the course of the next 3 years across a wide range of sectors to tackle the core challenges of our time.
As investigations began into the scandal of suspected corruption in European Parliament, recent inquiries revealed suspicions over involvement of Moroccan ambassador in Poland in the case through bribes and gifts given by the Moroccan diplomat to parliamentarians in a move to influence the Commission's decisions.
Make no mistake, the European Parliament, dear colleagues, is under attack. European democracy is under attack, and our way of open, free, democratic societies are under attack. There will be no impunity, none. Those responsible will find this Parliament on the side of the law, and I am proud of our role and assistance in this investigation.
Political scene in Libya is witnessing a notable political movement after the United Nations announced support for the initiative proposed by the Presidency Council to solve the problem of Libya. The initiative includes a comprehensive national consensus dialogue in the country. This move might work on solving the political and military conflict in the war-torn country, which has been suffering for over 11 years. And to neighboring Tunisia now, where the country is holding its legislative elections in a week's time on December 17th. More than 1,000 candidates are running for the elections, which most political parties have called to boycott. The new parliament will be composed of 161 deputies, but its powers will be very limited. Tunisia is also in a grip of a deep financial crisis, which has resulted in recurrent shortages of basic products in recent months and galloping inflation of 9.8%, according to the latest official figure published in early December. To Palestine now, where a child was killed after being shot by the Zionist occupation during the storming of the eastern neighborhood of Jenin in the West Bank. The director of the Mater Khalil Suleiman Governmental Hospital in Jenin stated that the 16-year-old Palestinian girl, Jana Zakarne, after 7 gunshots fired by Zionist soldiers while she was on the roof of her house and was found after the withdrawal of the occupation forces from the area. Still in Palestine, Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Riyad al-Malki handed the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict, Virginia Gamba, who started a special visit to Palestine, a detailed report on the Zionist occupiers' crimes against Palestinian children. The report included the occupying entity's systematic and deliberate crimes against Palestinian children, which fall within the framework of Security Council Resolution 1612, which includes killing and maiming of children, targeting schools and hospitals, sexual assaults, kidnapping of children, and denying access to humanitarian and medical aid. To Lebanon now. Total Energy said on Monday that the supplier for a new drilling platform of exploration in Lebanon will be selected in the first quarter of 2023. The giant corporation further stated that these objectives were verified by Patrick Wennett, the company's chief executive officer and chairman, during a recent meeting they had at its Paris headquarters with Walid Fayyad, the interim minister of energy for Lebanon. Iranian government agreed to impose more sanctions on individuals and entities in the European Union and the United Kingdom. This move is part of Tehran's response to the sanctions and comments of these countries on it in concern of the protests taking place in the country. The Iranian Foreign Ministry announced on Monday that the blacklisting includes 9 entities and 23 individuals in addition to media institutions, a military base, and former diplomats. The decision came after many of EU foreign ministers said the bloc is set to approve a new package of sanctions against Russia and Iran over the latter's crackdown on protest, as well as supplying drones to Russia in its conflict in Ukraine. However, the bloc's foreign policy chief stated that EU states have not yet agreed on a ninth package of sanctions against Russia. Let's listen.
The agreement was not reached among the ministers, but I hope it will be reached this week. And we will be able to approve this new tough package on the coming hours, or the latest during this week. Second, we adopted further round of sanctions against Iran for two reasons: for ongoing violation of human rights of the Iranian people, and for the help that Iran has provided to Russia in this bloodshed against Ukrainian people.
Moving on to the Russia-Ukraine file now, U.S. President Joe Biden confirms that he received a phone call from his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. Biden stated that the Ukrainian president thanked him for the financial and military assistance the U.S. has provided to his country. Biden's statement included the American will to further support Ukraine in its conflict with Russia. Many experts stated that this can be interpreted as a further sign that the war between Russia and Ukraine is to be prolonged. Previous analysis expected that the U.S. is willing to prolong the war to 2025. The International Energy Agency said on Monday that Europe has enough gas for the winter, but it's likely to face a shortage next year if Russia cuts supplies further, urging governments to act faster to save energy and expand renewables. Islam Sid reports.
Amid energy crisis following the war in Ukraine, Europe is bracing for a harsh coming year, as IEA and EU bloc's leaders warned against the natural gas shortfall of up to 30 billion cubic meters, highlighting the possibility of losing the rest of Russian pipeline supply amid tight market for liquefied natural gas.
This winter, it looks like we are off the hook. We may go through this winter with some economic and social bruises, but normally we should go through this winter as a result of all the measures taken in Europe, because our gas storages are very high. But the message that I am bringing up to you today is that the crisis is not over. And next year may well be, 2023, may well be much more difficult than this year.
The European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen underlined the needs to hasten renewables to the market and take all the steps to avoid a potential shortage next year in natural gas needed for heating, electricity and factories.
It is time now that we make joint purchasing a reality. We have the energy platform in place. We have to operationalize it now in the joint purchasing mechanism. Every day of delay comes with a price tag. We have discussions with member states, partner countries and their companies that are ongoing. This evening, tonight, I will discuss this matter with the Norwegian Prime Minister, for example. We can launch the first tender for demand aggregation by the end of March, but for that, we need to have an agreement on the emergency regulation we proposed on the 18th of October, and we need it now.
Despite the war, EU states were able to fill gas storage for the winter heating season by tapping new supplies. However, next year may pose a tougher test for Europe to cope with the gas crunch. Gas prices in Europe have soared this year after Russia reduced its gas supplies to the continent following the latest sanctions. EU nations held emergency talks on Saturday in an effort to line up a deal to cap prices, but the states are still divided on the proposal. The aim of the price cap is to protect consumers in Europe from the spike in energy costs. However, this move could be a bouncing blow to the continent, which already suffers skyrocketing fuel costs and stoking inflation.
Let's say after the West's decision to impose a cap on the price of Russian oil had entered into force, angry statements poured out from major producers of black gold over what they described unjustified intrusion into politics in oil issues, which was clearly expressed by the world's largest oil producer in defense of the options of the OPEC+ alliance aimed at striking a balance. Saudi Arabia considered that Western sanctions on Russian crude lacked feasibility and effectiveness.
OPEC Plus operates according to a specific mechanism and purely economic perspective. We do not enter into political aspects, nor aspects of alliances, and we have no intention in the future that we move to any shift, except from the perspective of the market and the perspective of the economic side.
To Italy now, where 3 women, including a friend of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, were killed on Sunday when a man pulled out a gun and opened fire at a meeting of residents of an apartment block in Rome. Police arrested a 57-year-old man who had been overpowered by other residents after the shooting in a meeting held at a bar in the Firini district of the city. The suspect was a local man who had been in a series of disputes with the Residents' Association. Peru's newest president, Dina Boluarte, gave in to protest demands early Monday, announcing in a nationally televised address that she will send Congress a proposal to move up elections. Boluarte's speech came after thousands of demonstrators rallied in Peru for another day on Sunday to demand that she resign and schedule elections to replace her.
Interpreting the will of the citizenship in the broadest manner, and consequently with the responsibility that implies the exercise of the action of governing, I have decided to assume the initiative to reach an agreement with the Congress of the Republic to bring forward the general elections for April 2024.
And for more news that are making headlines internationally, let's follow this news in brief by Usama Ayati.
A hotel catering to foreign visitors in Afghanistan's capital Kabul was attacked Monday, and 3 of the assailants were killed. According to Taliban government spokesperson, 2 foreign residents were injured when they jumped out of the windows to escape. A hypermarket in Moscow region was damaged in a major fire. Emergency services said that this is the second such a blaze in less than a week. Firefighters battled the large blaze in a satellite town of 500,000 people on the outskirts of the Russian capital. Pictures showed the fire had caused part of the roof to collapse, with smoke blowing into the air.
The alarm was raised about fire and thick smoke at the Stroy Tract construction supplies hypermarket in the city of Balashika. When the first fire crews arrived, a major fire incident was declared. The fire, which covered a total area of 9,000 square meters, has been brought under control.
The Chinese state-run communications itinerary card, which tracks whether someone has been in a high-risk area based on their phone signal, will go off at midday Tuesday after more than 2 years in operation. The itinerary card was a central part of China's zero-COVID policy, with millions of people required to key in their phone numbers to produce its signature green arrow in order to travel between provinces or enter events. U.S. Special Operations Forces carried out a helicopter raid against the Islamic State in northern eastern Syria early on Sunday, killing 2 operatives, including one official who the military said was involved in plotting and enabling terrorist attacks. U.S. officials said American commandos had planned the mission for weeks, but bad weather had delayed the operation.
Splashing down back onto Earth, NASA's Artemis 1 moonship successfully landed in the Pacific Ocean, ending a 25-day test flight to the moon and back. Zahra Farjani reports.
After spending just over 25 days in space and orbiting the moon, NASA's Artemis 1 moonship has finally landed in the Pacific Ocean. Descending under 3 huge parachutes, the unpiloted 9-ton Orion spacecraft gently hit the water of Baja California to conclude a test flight that should clear the way for astronauts on the next lunar flyby.
This is what mission success looks like, folks. This was a challenging mission, and this is what mission success looks like.
So now we are going to go and finish outfitting it so that we can put humans on board on Artemis 2. And that's, for us, a big deal because we'll put our astronauts on board. And so we're very much looking forward to that.
Since Artemis 1 mission was a success, engineers will spend months examining data to launch a crewed Artemis 2 flight around the moon and back, which could come as early as 2024, followed within a few more years by the program's first lunar landing of astronauts, one of them a woman, with Artemis 3.
The plan is to get ready to go with humans to Mars late in the decade of the 2030s, and then even further beyond. And we know from what we are finding from the James Webb Space Telescope that it is a very, very large universe out there to be understood and explored.
Although the capsule encountered some unexpected communication blackouts and an electrical issue during its voyage around the moon, NASA has given high marks to its performance, boasting that it exceeded the space agency's expectations.
After passing the Netherlands, Argentina is facing Croatia in the semi-finals of the World Cup 2022 in the Losail Stadium on Sunday. Both selections will fight to offer their captains the honor of qualifying and to claim the trophy for the first time in history. More details with Sofian Katuri.
Argentina made history by beating the Netherlands in the quarter-finals and managed the game to reach the semi-finals of Qatar 2022 World Cup. It was a game which had to be resolved by penalties. It was very intense from the beginning from both sides and increased with passing of minutes. Argentina passed the Netherlands to face Croatia now, in the semi-finals, at the Lusail iconic stadium, a yard that wasn't lucky charm for Lionel Messi and his friends, where they lost 2-1 to Saudi Arabia in their first game in Qatar. The Albicelesti were put to the right path, due to the goal they came to reach, which is to offer their special captain a gift that is considered as the biggest dream of any soccer player, while this edition could be the final one for El Pulga due to his age.
Ma direi che soprattutto
He's getting older, but in time he would create 30 actions during the course of a game. And nowadays maybe he will create 10, but he is still a very decisive player. He gets the ball, moves fast, and is very good at finding spaces. And once he reaches the opponent's small area, he's a killer. We are very happy that he's our captain. With everyone's support, with the squad, the technical staff, we try to work in the same direction to achieve our dreams. It is the most beautiful thing to do, with him by our side.
Croatia is not an easy team to pass easier, so Messi knows the weight of responsibility that is waiting for him in this game. To hail the Argentinian sun in Qatar's sky by claiming the golden trophy, which is not something easy. But the team will follow the paths of the legend Armando Diego Maradona to write the history all over again.
Well, that's it for today's news. For more stories, you can visit our social media platforms as shown below on our screen. Thanks for keeping it here on All 24 News. Have a good night.